Good morning, everyone. This is training an AutoML community call on 23rd of July. This meeting will be recorded and published on YouTube. This meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. Welcome, everyone. I think it's been a while since we have like the last call. It's been a couple of events and discussions we had. This is why I had to skip some of the calls. But before just jump to the agenda, do we have any new people here on the call who just want to introduce themselves? Just want to say hello to the community. Feel free to just use chat or unmute yourself and just say hello if you want to say hi. Right, in that case, let's just get started. Just jump directly to the agenda. Feel free to add any topics to the meeting notes. I just post the Google Doc to the Zoom chat. I think we have a few things to talk about. So first of all, let me share my screen. All right, can you see my screen? I think you should, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think first of all, we finally released it 2.0. I think this is great. I think it was a significant effort from multiple folks over the last year. I think it's been really exciting to see the journey from our conversation with the batch working group and starting to see how we can consolidate our efforts. I think all of this started like back in last year. I would say KubeCon last year in Paris when we had a first conversation around job sets and how we can build infrastructure on top to make sure we don't really reinvent the wheel and we're using the existing functionality and make sure we going to reuse the same functionality everywhere and improve the training operator. And this has ended up with something which we right now call Kubeflow Trainer, with ability to configure the runtimes, to trigger the train jobs, and to do several things. And I think the persona-driven architecture works quite well, I would say, because I think I had a multiple conversation with many different folks across the industry, and all of them have a similar kind of challenges. So we have a lot of ML users and AI practitioners who don't know anything about Kubernetes and still want to use the power of Kube to scale their AI workloads. And this idea of Python first interface and give them a quick way to iterate. I think this is what resonate with many of those folks. So I'm really excited with the architecture and all the things we've built. Please take a look in the blog post. I think we try to highlight few important features in the V2, including the Python SDK, the LLM fine-tuning support. So we support the kind of blueprints for LLMs. This is also one of our goals to make sure, all like right now, like the most people just do post-training. So we give them a quick way to iterate over their experiments. So please take a look how it works and try this out. Similar to we support MPI v2, which also was kind of a hard requirements and the ask from many users to see how we can leverage the MPI operator capabilities within training operator. So right now it is possible with the MPI runtime, and right now you can use the MPI based jobs within trainer, and other things like gang scheduling, queue integration, and all this job API like pod failure policies, success policies allows us to actually have much more resilient and fault tolerant jobs within our control plane. So I'm super exciting. Like, any questions maybe so far, any kind of discussions you want to have on the release? Maybe any questions how we can get started? So I post the blog post here to just to take a look like what is new in the trainer, like what kind of the overview of this release, what is about, what is the next things in the roadmap we have, and I think we have like really exciting things that we would like to talk about maybe in this call after this. Maybe I want to go through like the roadmap items. But please take a look in the blog post. Also, like I link the release notes here to make sure we can you can also like quickly get started with the trainer and try your first experiment, your first train job created with the SDK. So take a look at this. Yeah, I think this is pretty much it. So definitely, like I would love from users, and I know we already received few feedbacks on how like what we probably need to improve on API level. Like I saw some issues being open on can we like modify the resource requirements for other containers, and like do we want to introduce any other like API changes? So I think it would be really nice if we can maybe at some point review some breaking changes to see whether any APIs that we designed needs to be improved. Uh, so this will help us to see how we can graduate the API towards V1 or maybe to the beta stage in the next couple of releases. Um, yeah, so I guess like, I think we discussed it before, but we probably will have like more kind of regular release cadence. Maybe every sprint we can have a new release, like every maybe 3 months. So we'd love to see from the community some proposals and ideas how we can make it easier and just give new features to more folks to use to try out. All right. So with that, like any questions for 2.0 before we jump to the next topics? Um, let me quickly. All right, then I guess like, a few things we want to also talk about in this call, maybe a roadmap and a few things that I have an agenda like for SDK and for other things. Let me maybe share my screen. Um, 1 second. Right, so the roadmap, right? So I think like so a few things. I think we still have few pending items for the release. We need to work on the docs. So if anyone, I know I have like few open issues for documentation, right? I think I tried to label them with docs, area docs label. We I know like Shao, you're working on documentation for the Torchtune configs, right? I will take a look. Um, we also need to merge some of the website PRs and review them. Maybe let me link them because I think this is important for us to actually update documentation for the V2. Um, so one of the PR that I want to maybe ask for the review is the pipeline framework. So I think this one. So I don't know, like Yuki, if you have time, or maybe like any other like folks can take a look at this because this is actually explaining how this plugin mechanism work within Trainer. So we need someone who can take a look at this PR.
Yes,
So
sure.
yeah, website, and I think we also have this storage soon. Train this one, right? Which we also need to finalize. Yeah, so looking for so I know we also have like few things to talk about. Like we have few proposals which coming in from the community, like including JAX, Volcano, GPU infrastructure, and also I think we have the Aero Cache, which is also soon coming in. Like, do we want to first of all maybe quickly go through the roadmap and then jump to the cap discussions? Like, any objections?
I want to go to roadmap first.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, on the roadmap, this is just a draft. Like I try to see what we can achieve in 2025. So I guess like in 2025, we can make maybe two more releases, one or two more releases. Definitely we can make a release before KubeCon, maybe sometime in October and maybe like sometime in December, January. Um, so in 2025, right, like we try to see like, I try to identify what we already achieved, like the Trainer V2 in GA, like we released the first version, right? I would love for us to finalize the local execution, like the work that Saad is doing and other folks from Red Hat is driving this. And a few topics like around like the caps we have in open, right? First of all, the distributed memory data cache. So actually from my team is working on opening few PRs in Trainer to introduce these cache capabilities. So it will be like cache by itself and also like some changes to the SDK and to the initializer. As far as I know, like discussing with him, we don't need to do any API changes for this, so it will be very straightforward. Um, So then we have like this built-in trainer like with Torch, and I think this is like the work that Xiao you were doing, right? Maybe I think it would be nice for us to talk about like what we want to do with the Torch tune in
Yes.
in a way
Yes,
that
I
yeah
remember that Torch is going to be deprecated in the
yeah, yeah,
future.
yeah.
I'm waiting to see the new tools meta release.
That's right,
Yeah,
that's right.
I
So
don't know what to do in the next. So I wonder if I should explore more Llama, QN, and the other models first
yeah,
with the
so mhm.
tune.
Yeah, for everyone who just know like the Torch tune some sort will be I guess like not deprecated but transformed to the new project. Like the main
Yes,
thing will probably create a new project which covered the Torch tune functionality. I
yes,
think like I know like previously we've been discussing around using the Onslaught, right? This framework for fine tuning. Um, I think this is also maybe one of the interesting idea to see how we can leverage Onslaught to build these blueprints. Like in addition to TorchTune. Um,
yeah. I think maybe we should first explore some popular models such as Llama, Gemma, and QN first in the Torch
yep,
2. And in the future, we can explore new models in the project you mentioned.
that makes
Yes.
sense. I think like I would love from TorchTune folks to like see like what next. Uh, but we can give like ability to fine tune those models with TorchTune initially, right? Because they're not going to remove the projects; they're still going to maintain it, but not new features will be there in the TorchTune. Um, Anthony, do you have your hands up or you want to say something?
Yeah. On that point, how could I say, like, the that space, the post-training space is quite cutting edge and quite volatile. So you have lots of framework, like you mentioned, Unslot. There is Axolot as well, Llama Factory. There are a lot of um, training libraries with cutting edge algorithm, and basically all the research space is very active and dynamic, and is scattered across different libraries, and they all have their own life cycle and the time it takes. And in parallel, you kind of have some more established um, libraries, as you know, like Hugging Face, TRL. But generally, the more they are established, the more time it takes to absorb innovation, because they have to be more stable and so forth. So my point, I'm saying that in the sense that it seems from the signal that when in discussion I'm involved, like maybe it'd be good that for us, like we do not pick only one of these, like we tend, and I think it's a good lesson learned, like from the experience that we have for TorchTune. I think it correlates what I've just said, like it's so dynamic that even Meta, they decided to just like deprecate and rebuild something new. That maybe we could think about like supporting a few selected one, and maybe this is my point, maybe for downstream project that have their own specific needs, maybe we have a way to make it extensible for downstream project, like that you could register your own somewhat like runtime, training runtime, and even from the Kubeflow SDK standpoint, you could just extend it one way or another by maybe not to have all of these runtime in tree, but a mechanism so that you can just plug whatever for downstream project they'd like to use, like either Axolot, Unslot, whatever. Yeah, so that's my just comment. Just food for thought, I would say at that stage. But yeah, just as we were discussing the TorchTune deprecation, I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I agree. You could have hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Anthony, a very good point. So uh
Actually, we designed a training runtime mechanism to address such touch-tune deprecation situation, which allows us to avoid remove custom resource APIs once any kind of ML frameworks are removed. So in my opinion, so I think we need to uh, establish a maintenance policy for training runtime in upstream repository. For example, um, um, so maybe so we can define alpha, beta, stable stage for each upstream maintained training runtime. I guess in this situation, we all current training runtime is alpha rebel, so we can immediately remove um, those runtimes. But I don't say we should remove Torchun today. We want to discuss when we remove those runtimes. This is my proposal.
Yeah. Yeah. So go first, and then I just make a few points on SDK level.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention one thing here, guys. Um, um, when it comes to the SDK, when we implement this, are we going to keep that built-in trainer, but we define or we allow the runtime environment to be kind of dynamic or based on the user runtime environment, or the user will have to define xlotl or unsloth runtimes, and then the SDK will be just provide an abstract mechanism or an ability to register your own trainer that will hook into like existing runtimes that you have developed yourself, because like that could be the users could develop their own runtimes based on their needs, and then we have to provide that in the SDK. People should just add more trainers, and we define how the trainer should behave or what should be in the trainer, and then that should like allow access to the available runtimes and execution if that's
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think we tried to discuss it a little bit with Xiao, like when we have in this proposal, but just didn't have time to actually implement something, right? Because the trick is like all of these libraries, they have unique parameters you can tweak. And yes, you can find the similarities between them, but it's really tricky to have some sort of common config which can be used on any type of framework. Like designing the registration mechanism makes sense. I mean, maybe Xiao, like if you want to explore this and see how we can do that, I think that would be great. Because I agree that, like the runtime right now, the API of runtime is like fully extensible. We can remove Torchstone tomorrow and use Unslot without any kind of changes whatsoever. Probably the plugin changes will be required, but they're not really kind of, user-facing changes, right? The API changes. But on the SDK side, right now, yes, like we still have like the framework-driven configs, which I don't know, like if it's the ideal scenario behind kind of like more intelligent mechanism, right? To have those configs on the built-in trainers. Um, right. So right now, like, in the built-in trainer, we only support Torchstone config, but maybe it's not ideal, like way how we can, support more trainers in the future, right? So, yeah, so I think maybe like, Zhao, what would be really useful, like if you can maybe open an issue and maybe we can, propose some ideas there. Some maybe some folks from the SDK side also can suggest some ideas, and then we can see how we can make it more accessible, right?
Yeah, sure.
Without forced deprecation, right? All right. So any other questions on these built-in trainer discussions? Like I think it's still an important feature we have because I still see the need for users who don't want to really, define the entire, like training loop, but quickly iterate. Because usually, like, like they just want to see, like, what if I, use this data set on this model, right? Especially for folks who want to, like, have a lot of experimentation, but don't want to, like, spend time to define the PyTorch script. This is a useful feature. The question how to make this feature kind of more future-proof, right? Is the question. All right, so jumping to the other topics on the roadmap, right? So definitely like the built-in trainers, we need to kind of redesign, not redesign, but improve the capabilities of built-in trainers for other runtimes. So today we support PyTorch, DeepSpeed, and MLX, we might want to also support JAX. I know that Marty, you're doing this work. We kind of like telling people like you can use Hugging Face within Torch. The question is like, do we want to support maybe Hugging Face upstream? I also would love maybe to us to have a discussion like how we want to support its runtime and upstream. Like one of the examples, do we want to install additional libraries on top, like maybe UV? Like yes, I was using UV for quite a while, but using UV to install packages in runtime, like it's extremely faster than using pip. So maybe we should install UV to all of our runtimes and use UV as a main kind of, like package to install libraries on the runtime. Like, that the capabilities when user wants to install packages on top of the runtime, they're using the packages to install a parameter. But right now we use pip to install them. If you use UV, it will be much faster. So like kind of a discussion, like maybe some of the libraries we want to install on top of the runtimes, which you also need to talk about as well. On the runtime, so you get like your point around like having the ability to deprecate runtimes. Are you talking about only like for built-in trainers, or are you also talking about this kind of like more generic runtimes as well?
Sorry, so what do you mean generic runtime?
Yeah, like today we have like the runtimes for fine-tuning, right?
Yep.
And also we have the runtimes which just which requires for you to define the entire script, right? Like Torch, DeepSpeed, right? This one. So my question is like, when you say alpha runtimes, like, are you also talking about these type runtimes? Also, we need to have like the gradation policy.
However,
because,
so we
yeah.
cannot avoid the dependency on the upstream ML framework life cycle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow, PyTorch could be deprecated as technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, I think we need to have more kind of feedback from users. Like, I guess like we just need to spend some, like we just need to leave it as it is and see like what users say. And if users kind of like, telling the community we want to have like more upstream support from you guys, probably we need to consider it. Because maybe like we will like realize that platform engineers, we configure runtimes as they want, right? And we cannot really control like what version of Torch they're using. Maybe they want using very specific libraries by themselves, right? And we don't really have full control over like how users will deploy it, right? Yeah, I would suggest we just leave it with we support JAX and see what's going like what will happen with like how users will actually utilize this runtimes, and then figure out how this can be used, right? All right, then yeah. I guess like jumping to the other things here. Elastic PyTorch training jobs. I think this is the feature, like, I think this is important things we don't really have right now in upstream, but this require for us to contribute something to the job sets, like the Elastic job sets. I maybe would love to see like, whether the elasticity could be part of the, like the job set API, and then we can use the Torch Elastic API, right, within the train job. But it's definitely need to have some work on the job set side. And okay, then I guess like we have the gang scheduling, so we still support co-scheduling, and we also have we're doing some integration with Q. I think we also like the Volcano and K-scheduler coming in. Yeah, so I guess the point is like I know there is a work going on to kind of support gang scheduling within Kubernetes, but I don't know like when it will be there. So we might need to have these capabilities within our controller for quite some time, right? Yeah.
Can we mention multi-cluster support in this section?
Do you mean
So
multi-cluster, or what do you mean?
because once we support KQ, it means supporting multi-queue
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, I need to make a point.
I guess for end users, multi-cluster support is very impressive.
Yep. Yeah, I guess like I would love for multi-cluster to maybe have it like a separate point here, like GAN scheduling can do one thing, but multi-cluster is kind of like another thing, similar to exclusive. What is it like um uh, the the device placement, right?
Mhm.
And I think we also like introduced the API for this new feature, right, from KQ that we also can support with.
So sorry, what is device placement
Yeah,
feature?
exclusive device play. I guess like we recently introduced some API right on the train job, which allows us to leverage this feature from KQ. I don't remember like the name of the feature. You if you can.
Topology aware
Yeah,
scheduling.
topology over scheduling. Yeah, you're right. So
Mhm.
so maybe topology. So I think this is also very important for us to see like how it goes with train job. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I kind of like expect all these features to be part of queue, but I think we should probably add this here to explain users how they can use it within trainer. Yeah, so MPI, I guess there are several things we should do with MPI. We didn't get chance to do in 2.0, right? Like did you get chance to create an issue so I can link them in the roadmap? Like resources.
Not yet. So actually, so what exactly items to mention this?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, currently we don't support resources per node to be propagated to MPI, right? Um, like resources per node, then like I think we've been discussing around having the simple open like simple server to like right now like the MPI runtime the kind of like when we start the MPI job within train job like it's kind of like failing, right, because it waits until all of the MPI workers can communicate between each other. So we just need to figure out like whether we want to mitigate this failure by creating the some props, right, or some simple server which checks like the connection between the nodes. But this is like not. I think that this is separate.
Oh, I see. You mean when MPI launcher fail to initialize MPI worker nodes,
Yep.
entire train job will fail, but we want to mitigate the problem, right?
Yep.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, until the MPI workers are ready, right? So so yeah, I think right now like I kind of like expect like some of the users will complain on this because like your jobs can fail for multiple times, and you need to make sure like all of your nodes actually are can communicate. But this is not blocking issue. I kind of like for me like the resources per node more kind of blocking issue. I think other things around the non-proc per node, right? So some of the things which doesn't really work right now well with MPI runtimes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, sure. So we might be able to leverage job portfolio policy. I mean, job portfolio policy catch the dedicated exit code when launcher fail to access or initialize MPI worker. After that, trainer job just restart worker node instead of marked entire trainer job as failed. Maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Or like we can have a simple, like the web server which checks, right, like the connection. Yeah, but I think we can design something there to make sure like we don't fail the train job if X number of times the workers the MPI workers will not establish the connection, the SSH connection. That is fine. So yeah, launch now remove code. Yes, I think there are several issues for MPI enhancement, but overall I think like let's see how it goes. I think we definitely need to have like more kind of robust support for MPI within train job. Yeah, like GPU testing infra, I think this is work going on with Akash. I think that we still working on establishing the GPU infrastructure for our trainer. This will be very useful. And I think this is also very exciting things. I don't know if we can cover this in 2025, but like one of the kind of challenging for running train jobs is do checkpointing. I know there is some work going on to automate the CUDA checkpointing for GPU-based workloads. I've been exploring like the talk from these guys from like this paper, like the transparent checkpointing of GPU accelerated workloads. So basically, there is a way for you to snapshot your GPU process across distributed nodes and then restore it without any kind of user interaction. I think this is pretty interesting. I would love for anyone like who want to spend time on this to see like how this could be useful for us for checkpointing, especially on with the discussion how we're discussing this exporter part, and how we can improve resiliency, right? Because I think like for large scale jobs, it's a huge problem of how you can don't lose the GPU cost you spent on training your models, right? So you can restore your training without losing all of the work you've done before the failure happens, right? So it's pretty exciting. Like I think this like the work we definitely need to explore. All right. Maybe any other things I was missing? I know there is some improvements in job sets. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I
Yeah, go
close
ahead.
the mic?
Yep.
So I want to add so expose plugin registration mechanism to platform engineer. Currently, we have framework and plugins registration mechanism only for internal. However, they sometimes want to extend our framework mechanism to support their ML framework or their infrastructures. I think this is a great step to expand Kubeflow trainer availability.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think this is what we discussed initially. Like, this plugin mechanism in the pipeline framework allows you to register the custom plugins and custom runtimes, similar to scheduler plugins within Kubernetes. Yes, I think we definitely need to make this implement this. Makes sense.
Yes, that's true.
All right. Any other like topics on the roadmap you want to add? Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, one item that I was thinking about that we wanted to automate the release process. I'm not sure if we should call it out in roadmap, but an important part of this is to publish Python models to PyPy and then include them, import them from Kubeflow SDK as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think like we probably should just make the broader statement of enhancement of CI and the publishing. I think releases, yeah, release maybe like the one of the bullet point and publishing the modules to PyP. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, because like if we consider to have like more frequent releases, we right now the release is like super simple to do, but we definitely need to have a CI to automate it. So anyone can just trigger the release, like who is a maintainer of the project.
Mm-hmm. Yep, cool. And then also one item that I know Francisco has created the issue to create the trainer UI. And I know that Seth has been working on something like
Yeah, I think so. I would love to maybe also discuss about some sort of train job history server. I know there is kind of I see there is a need for history server for training workloads, and it's kind of like also connected to the UI. Similar, Spark has history server. Many frameworks has history servers. I would love from start from Francisco to also think about it, because I also see the need from our users to have some sort of capability to store those train jobs in somewhere. So maybe we can think about trainer UI and history server all together.
Yeah, I think one thought about this is that like it would be intuitive to migrate the SDK into KFP and then use the KFP as a seed for that UI to enhance it there. Because then we could, I have a PR open in KFP where you can compile it locally, like the same way that we do in Feast and render it there. In Feast, as a part of the SDK, you can spin up, the application locally, and you can see a bunch of the metadata. It's kind of nice. That's what MLflow does. It tends to be a pretty common pattern. And I think we could do the same thing here. For the train job history, I think there are other things we could show as well. Adding tensor board compatibility would be I feel like a pretty natural, obvious thing. And so I think that's a consideration. Doesn't have to be how we do it, but I do think that would be the end state experience. I think would be really useful to the end user.
Yeah, I think we still need to have some sort of common metadata layer, and I wish someone from the community can drive this idea, so we can use this across multiple Kubeflow projects, especially on the on the job scenarios when you have your train jobs, your pipelines, your optimizing jobs, right? And even Spark jobs. Spark has its own history server, but there is a need to have the common metadata layer so we can store it, and then the UI so users can track all of this information, right?
So model registry and pipelines did do an exercise on this, particularly with MLflow, and so they have something put together. The UI piece is still an open question, but I think we can work to consolidate and coordinate with them on this. I think the timing would have to be, I guess, is what I'm really calling out, that we should probably wait until we're embedded into the KFP SDK.
Yeah, you mean installing the Kubeflow SDK as part of KFP SDK, right? And then everyone can use it, right? Yeah, I think we should make Kubeflow SDK release as fast as we can. The SDK, right? So we can publish it to IP, and then we can move forward if KFP maintainers they don't have any objections, right?
Yeah,
with that. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you, Yuki. Sure. All right. So any other items on the roadmap I was missing? Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. I just want to get users exciting about all the amazing work we do. We definitely already have all this, some of the items already been merged in upstream, but I think having a strong kind of foundation and the goals for us, I think would be really interesting, because we really need to understand what is the motivation for users to use the train job and the trainer within Kubernetes ecosystem. Yeah, so some of these capabilities definitely can drive more adoption from the end users. All right, so I guess let's move on then. So the open GitHub discussions, let's maybe start a thread. One of the things I want to talk about, I know some of the projects using GitHub discussions, some of them they don't use. Just I want to hear from this community. Do you think it's valuable for us to have another point of contact from our users? And do you see any benefits of having these GitHub discussions being open, so we can collect a feedback in addition to Slack and GitHub issues? Any good examples from working with other communities when this was useful? I can also start it. Yeah, go through this.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I work in a couple other communities, and honestly, I wouldn't say that we don't have to shut it out. What I've observed is that not that many people go to a discussion, and we can actually just convert it to an issue later. So I generally don't say no to things. It is a little bit more overhead to look at it, but we'll get a notification and we can kind of respond accordingly. But I wouldn't push people there. I would probably just still say hey, open an issue.
Yeah, I think GitHub discussions useful for questions, right? For just broader most questions, right? Because usually people use issues for kind of tracking items, right? And it's if you have a lot of questions and issues, just get spammed, right?
Yeah, so, and you can actually convert a discussion into an issue. and the reverse, I believe. And so like, I see them as almost interchangeable, but just in practice, what I've seen is that people tend to use issues even for something that's probably a discussion. And I think like that's kind of fine. I don't really care to be like, that's just my preference. I'm not saying that it's fine for us to care, but I'm like, whatever you want to talk to me on GitHub, I'll respond to you.
Yeah, that's right. So let's just, I will start a thread just to look at like feedback from folks who are interesting. And I think having the more resources for users to ask questions is useful, but in the meantime, we don't want to, like, if you would just leave these questions without any answer, it will give them more kind of bad impression on the project, and we definitely don't want to like open more resources. But let's see. So, all right. So for Jax, Magdi, do you have any questions? I still need to review your updates, but go ahead.
Yeah. I tried to summarize everything and come up with a very simple ADR. The difference in opinion was about having or supporting multiple backends and how to abstract the configurations which JAX requires for each backend. You can read, but if you go to the summary, I reached to a point that maybe multiple backend which defaults to Glue is a really good option. It also offers the backward compatibility because in trainer version 1 we have only Glue, so we can ace this process. And when it's enabled by default, we don't need any field in the plugin runtime which we want to design. Then the second group of users maybe advanced use cases which want to use NCCL and MPI as the backend, because these two are the other options that JAX support. We can have a custom plugin runtime as Shao suggested. There we can observe the environment variables to the pods within this runtime. So this is what I came with. I try to balance everything. And then, for example, we may have 2 or 3 Docker images, which the first one is actually for the default setup, and the rest are for the NCCL and the MPI, which, as you asked me, we use the MPI run command to run the training script, but for the communication operations, we need to use MPI for JAX, which is a Python package, and we need to include that in the Docker image as well. So that's the solution I came with. I don't know, maybe Shao has opinion on it.
Yes, Shao, do you want to add anything? I think my question is does JAX use MPI as the backend, or they're using MPI just to kick off the jobs, MPI run? Because, for example, DeepSpeed doesn't use MPI for communication between devices. DeepSpeed still using NCCL, like NVIDIA libraries to communicate with GPUs, but just use MPI to kick off the DeepSpeed jobs. You can use DeepSpeed as torch run. Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, the thing is that JAX, since JAX is for Google, they have 2 paths. They support TPUs out of the box, and it's the first preference. And they have also a fallback mechanism for that. The order is TPU, then GPU, then CPU. And the default backend communication is Glue, which is by default. And 2 other options are NCCL and MPI to run the script. And yeah. And
what do they use for GPU communication?
For GPU, they can use NCCL and MPI.
Okay, and what are the differences between the performance between NCCL and MPI for GPUs?
I don't have any sense because I don't have any experience. Maybe you can help me.
And for TPUs, they still use Glue as the backend?
For TPU, they don't need anything. because in core of JAX they have support for it. They even don't need to initialize the distributed method for that.
Okay.
So for TPU there is no config. We can just add documentation for that how they can run on TPU. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have any other config to set for the glue backend, and we need to set MPI and NCCL configs, right?
For glue, if we set glue as a default backend, we need to observe 3 environment variables. The first one is the runner IP address, and the second one is the number of process, number of process we read from the I think number of nodes, if I'm not mistaken, and the other one we need to support that in the custom runtime plugin.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I still think we still need to coordinate these environment variables, right? In the plugin, right? Like coordinate address, coordinate the port, non-process, process ID, right?
Yeah, but the thing is for TPU and for Slurm and for MPI, we don't need these environment variables, and the JAX will handle that automatically. For
So you mean
Glue,
like
we
if
need
we use MPI run to kick off the job, right? Because it's check the host file, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Can you double check if there are any kind of performance differences to using just a Python as the entry point or MPI run, and to figure out like whether we can just leverage MPI as the MPI ML policy for JAX to kick off the job, right? And I think like for MPI, if you use MPI run, we can still use Glue as the backend, right? Like for example, like if we want to use JAX on CPUs, right? We can use MPI to kick off the job, right? But it will still use Glue as the backend for the communication between CPUs, right?
Isn't these two both communication backends?
Yeah, so MPI is the communication backend and MPI run is a kickoff for your script,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So yeah, I think like maybe let me make a point here. If we use MPI run, so the question is like, will Glue still be used for CPU communication, right?
No, the answer is no.
Okay, so it will be MPI as the backend, right?
Oh, no, let me double check it.
Okay, yeah.
Double check. Yeah.
Maybe I can also follow up on your cap as well. Yes, maybe like, it's, I would love for others to also review, because that if you use just MPI, it doesn't require any kind of um, changes to the API. Yeah, but let's take a look.
So do we want to support Glue and NCCL for the backend, or just use MPI for the communication backend?
I think we need to figure out like what users actually want, right? Like if MPI works well and it doesn't give any kind of performance, it doesn't reduce the performance, maybe it is fine, but we need to see like, whether JAX community recommend to use MPI run to kick off their jobs, right, on Kubernetes. As far as I know, JobSet has some specific coordinator, like they use job sets for in JAX library, and they do this differently. So maybe also, Magdi, I think maybe also would be interesting if you can explore how JAX using job sets to start TP, like the JAX jobs on Gkey. So then maybe that also will be helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. I know we have 5 minutes, but let's maybe quickly move on other things. So yeah, Antonio, go ahead.
Just a quick point on that, because I didn't want to raise it, but now that you've talked about it, I was always wondering why the current deep speed runtime is based on MPI, the one that's in tree.
Yeah.
Why I don't know. You've said it like it's not needed, and even like I'm posting that because that's something from the documentation from DeepSpeed itself. Like they mention it that for Kubernetes, it's not something like really, and they document the way how to set it up with the DeepSpeed CLI, but even with Torchrun. And I just maybe a question: is it useful that it's based on the MPI runtime?
Yeah, so MPI, so you would definitely need Yuki here because he can definitely comment more. He has a lot of users who are using MPI. MPI run is useful because you have like, the difference is you have like single launcher who kick off your job, and you don't need to debug all of your workers to check what's happening. For example, like you have a single launcher who start entirely of your job, rather than you have like 5 different workers who needs to run torch run command. So main difference is like you starting the distributed job from the single pod, right? And you can also like it's easier for you to debug and easier for you to also like restart a job because you just need to add another worker and then establish the SSH connection between them. On the other hand, in a torch run, you need to restart, you need to execute torch run on every pod again if something breaks, right? And I know some people using torch run to kick off DeepSpeed. I'm using people using MPI run or DeepSpeed like CLI as well. So that's correct. There are a lot of CLIs right now. Hugging Face also accelerates, right? It also has its own CLI. So
yeah, true. Yeah.
Right. So I think this is already discussed. So for SDK, I know we didn't get a chance to discuss the Katib. So just a few things. I know like the question is like whether we want to include Katib in the Kubeflow SDK, and we had this discussion around like what is the future for API for Katib. I actually been thinking a little bit about this, but we definitely need to spend time to redesign the APIs for hyperparameter optimization in Kubernetes, especially with integration with Trainer. And we need someone who can volunteer to suggest some API changes. Yeah, go ahead, Annie.
Yeah, so regarding this, that's not me who gonna volunteer,
Yeah,
but
sure.
why are we blocked with this refactoring of APIs in Katib? Why don't we want to migrate Katib SDK before that to unified SDK and then work on the refactoring?
We can do that as well. So today we can also even support train job within Katib, like the existing version of APIs and experiments. I think the question is like, what you actually like. Will users see any kind of downside if you're going to deprecate it in the future, right? Um, yeah, like your point is like, can we just migrate the existing API to the Kubeflow SDK, right, and do this as it is, right, and use it as it is? Yeah, we can do this. I just would love to like because we still need to do this work, right, to change the KTP API, the experiment API. But do we have a user who like do we like why do we want to do this? Like because we see a need to have a hyperparameter unique optimization API within Kubeflow SDK. What is the main motivation?
Well, we have migrated Trainer SDK, and I think there's some work needed to be done with KFP. So because we've got some time, and I thought that maybe it was migrating Katib SDK prior to refactoring the APIs. Because from the previous discussion, as far as I understood, it will take a lot of time to redesign the APIs.
Yeah, I guess I'll say one brief statement is that like I think smaller incremental changes is always better and more frequent releases the better than less frequent releases. But that's just a personal opinion, Andre. That's that's is more of a you decision. But I would say that like in Feast we aim to have releases every couple weeks or every month. And we do a pretty good job of that. But obviously there's a lot of big differences.
Maybe it's a good idea actually. So like because if you're gonna have a new API, it will be maybe a new client, and maybe we can gradually migrate users. Yeah, and then we just
As a general point, like smaller, more frequent, and even in Llama Stack, we release at least every week, sometimes a couple times a week, and it just ends up being a lot easier, especially if there are bug fixes. People don't have to wait for forever. But that's a huge decision. I'll just share the piece that I'm.
Yeah, I understand. Brian, you have hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there's some doubt and uncertainty around Katib. I wanted to ask again, I asked in Slack, but around the possibility of maybe looking at model registry and seeing if there's worth some effort in looking at how that might be migrated.
Yeah. So I mean, there are definitely a lot of problems with Katib, right? Like the main problem, like we don't have enough maintainers who can do the work, and so there are a lot of definitely things we can improve there and have more kind of tight integration with trainer, and enhance the capabilities for many things, right? And like reduces confusion for experiment API, have integration with Q even, right? With KQ. We just never had time to work on this, right? But I kind of like feel this work again separated from SDK. Maybe it's again a good idea just to use what it have right now and have some sort of support. Because you can actually right now in KTP you can orchestrate any type of CRD, even the train jobs. It's gonna work. We just need to define like the long-term plan, right? So I think maybe is the next step. It would be nice if someone can explore how KDP SDK works today, and maybe to see like what does it mean for us to move this to the Kubeflow SDK. I mean, like specifically, today we don't support tune API within training operator. Like it has some like limitations of what you can do within KDP SDK. And if someone can take a look and just say like what does it work like, what it will be for us to just migrate this to Kubeflow, I think that will be really nice.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. We can definitely take a look at that. I said it will be quite straightforward as we did with trainer, just like a lifted shift.
Yeah, but the thing is like we don't. So KTP orchestrate. I know over time, but like KTP orchestrate jobs within the experiment HPO jobs, and today we don't support train job. So which means like when you start the HPO jobs, it will not use train job. It will use just the native Kubernetes jobs, which means maybe it's good for now to just give you some capabilities, but for the long term, like we need to have a more kind of clear API capabilities. Like so users can quickly train the jobs and they can also optimize the hyperparameters quickly by using the same type of job. So there are several discussions we should have. Yeah. So I just like suggest like take a look in the KTP SDK, see what can be changed there, like what can be migrated there, and maybe maybe we can just as you said migrate just without train job support within KTP right initially.
Cool. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this, by the way. I think, yeah, I agree that we should, as Francisco said, we should give incremental value, and just to maybe in the next version of Kubeflow SDK, when we release it, we can have KDP support. But my expectation, once we merge the local execution, we release the Kubeflow SDK to the PyP, so we can start to do this KFP work and other work, right? All right. Any other questions before we? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick one. So if we are saying that we want to publish Kubeflow SDK to PyPy, do we want to publish models from trainer to PyPy prior to that, or can we import them from GitHub?
Yeah, but for now we can use from GitHub, right? Because I expect we release the Kubeflow SDK before we release a new version of Trainer, like maybe sometime in August, early August, once we finish the local execution. But the models can be done later, right?
Cool. Thanks. That's great.
I thought it was a requirement for publishing to PyPy that all dependencies had to also be on PyP. I think Brian might have looked into this previously. I don't think you can use Git references for something that is published to PyP. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, can you take a look, please, on this end? So, yeah, in that case, so just to see if we have any blockers, right?
Sure, sure, we'll look into that.
Okay, okay, I will make a note here. All right. Anyway, so let's follow up on this. I think it's a great discussion. Let's definitely see, like, we definitely should release it as soon as we can, so people can just quickly, users don't need to install it from GitHub. So we definitely need to move forward with this release. And I agree that we should have a roadmap for SDK as well, as we mentioned in the doc. So maybe we can follow up on the next calls for this discussion. All right. Thank you so much. Then I guess see you in 2 weeks. Let's follow up on Slack for all this additional conversation. Thanks, everyone. So see you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.